Hi there folks, Spooktober has finally rolled around and thus I obviously have to talk about Netflix's newest spooky movie, that being Mike Flanagan's version of Stephen King's Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game has always been, if not necessarily one of my favorites, one of Stephen King's stories I found the most interesting and definitely one I thought nobody would ever have the guts to put to film. But here comes Netflix with their complete disregard for studio standards, and it is awesome. Gerald's Game starts innocently enough, in lack of a better term, when middle-aged couple Gerald and Jesse go to a remote vacation home in order to try and spice up their sex life with a little bit of bondage play. Gerald, however, refuses to lay off when Jesse makes it clear that she's really not that into it, causing her to kick him in the groin, which in turn sparks a heart attack that kills him on the spot. Now, this would be bad enough on its own, but the real problem is that Gerald used actual police handcuffs when he tied Jesse to the bed, meaning there is no way she can get free. So now all she can do is struggle to survive through thirst and starvation, as well as deal with the machinations of her own head. Now you can probably see why with a concept like that I found it a little unlikely that this would ever become a movie. Not just from the sex games, which Hollywood are so freaking afraid of to begin with, but because the whole story is basically a woman tied to a bed and going through inner monologues. It's a lot of flashbacks, there's a lot of talking to yourself, and on a surface level it seems like there's really no way to work around this. But Mike Flanagan manages to do a really awesome job. But this shouldn't actually surprise anyone, because Mike Flanagan has proven himself to be a bit of a horror master in recent years. I really liked Oculus and Hush, and I haven't had the pleasure of watching Ouija Origin of Evil, but I do hear very good things, which is amazing considering how incredibly boring and stock the first one was. Flanagan and his writing team definitely managed to find a pretty good workaround to the inner monologue problem though, because if she's going to talk to herself through the whole book, which is obviously very hard to put on film, then why not just have her talk to hallucinations of herself and her dead husband in the movie? It works a lot better than it may sound on paper, mostly because of great performances from the two lead actors, whose names escape me right now. I'm not terribly familiar with either of them, so please forgive me that one. And it wasn't just the concept of a woman being in peril because of a sex game gone wrong that made me doubt that this movie would ever get made. It's just as much the subject matter. Now, I'm not going to go into details on that, and movies have definitely been made about it before, but it's very tricky to get someone on board with this, and this is a woman who has been thoroughly broken by events in her past, who now finds herself in a completely impossible situation, and it is absolutely grueling to go through, even before it starts to appear that there's actually someone in the room with her. Yeah, this is a Stephen King story, so even with a thriller like this, there is obviously going to be some manner of horror element. And it is just as terrifying as in the book. It's kind of hard to talk about this movie without giving away all the best parts of the story, so I'm going to have to keep this fairly simple. It occurs to me that the movie is actually very similar to my real favorite Stephen King story, Cujo, which actually gets name dropped here, in that it's about a woman who is stuck in one location, it's a one-location thriller, facing some really horrible danger, with the main difference being that the danger is not quite as physical and immediate in Gerald's Game. I mean, yeah, it's physical, but it's not something that's going to attack her right this instant, at least not to begin with, or as far as we know. It's also similar to the Cujo movie in that, given how the story plays out, the movie very much rests on the main actress, and my god, she does a great goddamn job. This is quite the ride through someone's horrible, horrible past, through someone's horrible, horrible present, and through someone's insane badassery in trying to get out of it. Like, she fights. She definitely fights. And the movie makes no bones about how gruesome certain things that happen are. Like, it gets really bad. There's one scene that is the first time in a while I remember actually wincing and looking away from the screen. That doesn't happen often, not to pat myself on the shoulder too much, but I usually handle things very well, but not here, nope. To those of you that have read the book, I can tell you that the movie is incredibly faithful to it. Like, the main changes I can think of are really minor things like owning a smartphone because it takes place in present day, and making a few things about the ending a little less ambiguous, and of course the fact that, as far as I remember, she was naked throughout the whole book, which I'd argue isn't necessary for a movie anyway, and I wasn't expecting it, but that's a whole different argument. The main problem with it might actually be the ending, and it's not really a problem, it's just that the way the ending is written is very, very hard to translate to film, and the ending in the film decides to much more clearly answer some questions that were left a bit in the air in the book. And it makes sense, it makes fine sense for the story, but it does mean that the last 15 minutes or so completely shift gears, and you just go from this horrible situation to a lot of exposition, and I imagine that can halt things a lot for a lot of viewers, but it's still a very fitting ending. It still works wonders as far as I'm concerned. So that's Gerald's Game for you, a really fine Stephen King movie. Now, there are still a lot of Stephen King stories that haven't actually made it to film, and are there any of those that you would actually love to see a movie of, or are there even some you'd love to see get a better movie than they got? Tell me about it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more reviews of video games, movies, comic books, cartoons, all sorts of crazy shenanigans. You can also follow me on social media, and all of it is in the description. See you next time, folks!